Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'll be taking a look at the latest entry-level force feedback racing wheel from PXN. This is the V10, which is compatible with the PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, and a PC, but it's not compatible with a PlayStation 5. Details are in the description below, including purchasing links. So we'll take a quick look at what's inside the box, go through the main features of each of the components, we'll test it out to see how well it performs, and give you my first impressions with any pros and cons. But before I begin, if you're new to the channel, hope you can support me by subscribing and hitting the bell icon to get notified of my next release. In the box, you get a user manual, a power lead, a power adapter with a DC connector, a selection of cables, a bag of screws and an Allen key, mounting clamps, the V10 racing wheel, the wheel base, the shifter, and finally the V10 pedals. Let's begin with the PXN V10 wheelbase. It's made from plastic with a metal plate underneath. It comes in a matte black finish with a red stripe across the top with a glossy black plastic ridge across the top. On the front you have a quick release system made of plastic. It measures 220mm in length from the quick release point to the back of the wheelbase and is quite compact in size. The wheelbase works with a dual motor consisting of gears and cogs, and this provides force feedback when racing. It's capable of providing 3.2 Newton meters of peak torque, which is more than the Logitech G29, as that provides 2.1 Newton meters of peak torque. On the back you have the connection ports for the shifter. There's a switch to change between 270 degrees to 900 degrees rotation on the wheel. There's a connection for the pedals, power adapter, gaming controller, and a USB port. Connecting up the wheel is simple. You just line up the little plastic nib at the top and screw in the racing wheel to keep it secure. The V10 racing wheel looks small in size and measures 270mm across and 249mm in height. It's quite light in feel and is covered with stitched synthetic suede material that feels quite nice and grips well. The rim has a D shape with a metal red strip for its center line. In the middle you have a plastic frame with all the control buttons, which includes a home button in the middle, a function button at the bottom, and an LED indicator at the top. You have your D-pad buttons on the left and your controller buttons on the right. The paddle shifters on the back are made from metal and consist of two paddle shifters, and the clutch paddles are underneath. The paddle shifters have a clicky sound to them when pressing down, whereas the clutch pedals underneath don't have any sound. The pedals come mounted on a plastic board with a metal face on the heel and pedal plate, and has PXN branding on the top. It comes with the accelerator, brake and clutch pedals, which are all made from plastic and can be adjusted up, down and from side to side. Underneath you have some rubber pads to prevent it from slipping on carpet and on hard flooring, and you have 4 holes that allow you to attach to a sim frame. All the pedals are spring loaded, which can be adjusted to increase the tension by turning the plastic nuts underneath. This increases the tension when pressing down. It's connected via an Ethernet cable, and they're providing an additional cable to allow you to plug it directly into a PC too. I assume this is to enable you to use it independently without this wheelbase. Onto the shifter. It's made of plastic with rubber around the knob. It has a H pattern shifter with 6 forward gears and 1 reverse gear. To use the reverse gear, you have to push down and then put it into the 6th gear. It has 2 buttons at the top to control the parking brake and 1 for the truck simulator to engage the higher gears. It has no pre-drilled holes underneath for mounting, but it does have a plastic clamp to allow you to mount it onto your desktop, cockpit or wheel stand. The cable on the shifter is connected to the back of the wheelbase, plus they also provide an additional cable to plug it directly into your PC. Again, I assume to enable you to use it independently without the wheelbase. The 2 mount clamps I have here are made from plastic and are used to mount the wheelbase onto a racing cockpit or desk. It's pretty simple to mount onto a desk by lining up the wheelbase on the desk and attaching the mounting clamps on either side and then screwing it into position to hold it in place. Once attached, it does feel very secure. I've mounted the PXN V10 wheelbase, pedals and shifter to my next level racing GT Elite Sim Racing cockpit, and I'm using my LG OLED C1 55-inch TV, which is mounted on my freestanding monitor stand, which is from Track Racer. The setup was pretty simple. I've clamped the wheelbase to the frame using the clamps provided, and I could get an angle on the wheel as the frame has adjustments on there. On the shifter, I've used a mounting clamp underneath to secure it into position, and I've secured the pedals to the frame using the screws provided. I've increased the resistance on all the pedals to give it a bit more tension, which makes it feel slightly stiffer, but it still feels pretty easy when pushing down with my hand, so it's not made a massive difference. I've connected up the pedals and the shifter to the wheelbase with the cables provided. Now let's test this out. I've connected the wheelbase to my Xbox Series X, and you have to plug in your controller to the wheelbase, which I did find a little bit strange for it to all work. Now powering on my Xbox Series X, it's interesting to see that the wheel goes through a calibration similar to what you see on the Logitech wheels, where the wheel spins back and forth. Let's test this out with Forza Horizon 5. Driving around, the V10 generally performs well, giving a good amount of feedback of any knocks, bump, and you can even feel the feedback going around corners. Generally, it performs well for an entry-level wheel, giving 3.2 Newton meters of torque. The wheel isn't bad at all and does feel good with it being responsive when driving, but the wheel does feel a little bit on the small size, and I really would have preferred if it was slightly bigger. The buttons are all in easy reach and paddle shifters work as expected. One thing I did notice when pressing down on the paddle shifters to go up or down a gear, there was a bit of empty space when you push down. And this is because there's a small gap between the paddle shifter and the switch. So for example, when you push down initially, it feels a little bit disengaged as nothing happens until you push down all the way. But obviously at this price range, it isn't a biggie as it does the job as expected without any issues, but thought it's worth highlighting. It also comes with clutch shifters, which is something that isn't available on the budget Logitech wheels. Moving on to the shifter, and it works fine, allowing you to easily shift through the gears. But if you had big hands, you may find it small. The clamp generally does a good job holding the shifter in place, but it would have been nice if they had some holes to mount it directly onto a sim frame. The pedals work as expected and the tension is reasonable when the springs are at maximum tension. However, all the pedals feel the same with slight variations in tension, which is no surprise as they all work in the same way. But it was a shame the brake pedal didn't have a dampener in addition to the spring to give it a slightly more realistic feel with some resistance behind it, as it just felt like the accelerator and clutch even after adjusting the tension. The clutch has no biting point, which is no surprise, but for entry-level pedals they work more than adequately. I've tested on the PlayStation 4 playing Gran Turismo Sport and on a PC with Assetto Corsa. The performance on all these platforms was pretty good for an entry-level system, giving a fun racing experience. And I was surprised to see that there's even a mobile app available on both Android and iOS that lets you connect to the wheelbase via Bluetooth to make changes. So I was quite pleased to see that. So in summary, the PXN V10 racing wheel is a good entry-level wheel if you're on a limited budget and you wanted to race with a wheel. Plus it's an alternative to the Logitech G29 or G923, as it comes with everything you need to get started, including a shifter. Plus it can work on a PC, Xbox and PlayStation 4, but unfortunately it can't work with a PlayStation 5. With the wheelbase having a quick release system, this opens up the question whether PXN will be introducing different racing wheels. However, as of yet, there isn't any on the market. Feedback levels are on par with what you'd get with a Logitech wheel. It's a good entry-level system for someone looking to get into sim racing or truck simulators. With its low levels of force feedback, small wheel, and the fact you don't need to push down hard on the pedals, so perfect for young kids. Negatives wise, I didn't like the feel of the brake pedal, and even when the resistance was on maximum, it still felt weak. A rubber dampener would have improved things significantly, so it's a shame they didn't put that in. I also found the V10 racing wheel small in size, and it would have been nice if it was slightly larger. But overall, the PXN V10 is more than adequate as an entry-level racing wheel to experience sim racing. So there you have it. You come to the end of another video, and I hope it's helped anyone thinking of purchasing this. Details are in the description below, including purchasing links. And if you're still here, drop a PXN V10 in the comments, as it's nice to see who's made it to the end of my video. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be notified of my next release. Thanks for viewing and see you in the next one.